for another episode of Launch at Lunch. I'm your host, Jon Winkel, and I'm joined by
Keith Reynolds. How are you?
We got another great show for you guys this week. A bunch of really great guests for you. The first one is going to be Russell Jones. He's the president of the Stamford Symphony Orchestra, and he's going to be giving us a story on digital transformation that they're going through and using online tools to engage and scale their audience. The next guest after that is going to be Dan Morris. He's a senior advisor for Bell Point Wealth Management, and he's going to help us try to make sense of what's going on in the economy and as well as the financial markets. If you have listened to any piece of news in the last 5 weeks, you know it's a bit crazy out there. Dan will help us try to make sense of it. And then last, but certainly not least by any stretch, we have Mark Strauss. He's the co-founder of Wave Aerospace. They're a really innovative, leading-edge drone technology company. They've got some incredible products out there, and so Mark will bring us up to today about where drone technology is. You'll probably be surprised to learn how far it's come, and you'll also get maybe a glimpse of where the future of drone technology might be. A quick shout-out to our sponsors. So we have NatWest Markets, Robinson & Cole, Half Full Brewery, Connecticut Innovation, Bell Point Capital, Consensus, the City of Stamford, Deloitte, NBC Sports, Digital Media Connecticut, Danger Gallery, Yukon, Stamford Downtown, AXA, Charter, Stamford Town Center, and Deloitte. So the list goes on and on. I'll cover maybe like a third of it each week. It's pretty long, but we're very grateful for all the support that we get from everybody. So with that, just few housekeeping items. You're going to see some really rich features here in our broadcast platform. It's called Big Marker, and so there's chat, there's resources, you can look at some video and slides and have some takeaways and handouts. So if you are on a desktop or a laptop, you'll find it over here. And if you're on an iPad or similar device, you might see those controls up top. But find them, use them. They're here for your entertainment, for your questions. If you have Q&A for our panelists, we'd love to hear from our audience. And you're also going to find and see the poll results there as well. You're going to get a recording after this, so just feel free to sit back, enjoy the show. You know, no need to take any notes or anything like that.
Yeah, and John, I really want to encourage people to use the public chat. We'll be monitoring it and help guide our conversation and make it more interactive. And you can also use the Q&A to put in questions. Once we've had the three guests go through it, we're going to open it up to a conversation. So if you spend the time putting in your thoughts in the chat and Q&A, we'll try and get to everybody.
Absolutely. Thanks, Keith. Great points. So that brings us to the show. With no further ado, Keith's going to take us through the Stamford Symphony. We've got a really cool tickler for you in the beginning here. They're doing some incredible digital tools, and let's take a look at that and get that started.
Very cool. So the symphony, which plays at the Palace Theater in downtown Stamford, found itself with cutting off its season in March. And so within days, they had a channel up online at stanfordsymphony.org. And we're going to jump in with Russell here in a moment. But check out this amazing and beautiful rendition of Amazing Grace.
Amazing Grace is a song that we carry in our collective consciousness, and we carry it in our hearts. I'm Michael Stern, And while social distancing is keeping us apart, it cannot keep us far away.
Hey, Russell, welcome.
Hi, Keith. Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about why you got all this started, how it came about, who's involved, and what you all are doing.
Well, as you said, our season was turned upside down in March. We've lost 3 concerts, 2 full orchestral concerts at the Palace, March and April, a piano recital, which was going to celebrate Beethoven's 250th birthday this year in May, all gone, postponed, maybe cancelled. And of course, the whole point of a symphony orchestra, any performing arts organization, is to perform live. And to be honest, the symphony hasn't had a great track record of using technology. And we realized immediately that had to change very, very quickly. And whilst we like to think of ourselves as a real artistic leader in Fairfield County, and so we had to fill the void as fast as we possibly could and bring music in particular, being a universal language, everyone can appreciate it. And so really within days of the lockdown beginning, we thought we have to provide comfort and solace and entertainment. And we came up with the Stamford Symphony channel, which lives on our website, stanfordsymphony.org. And it's the right thing to do in the first place. And ultimately, we serve the community in everything we do, whether we're doing a full symphony performance at the Palace or we put 2 musicians in the half-full brewery for our Symphony on Tap productions. We are there to engage and serve the community. There's no point existing without doing that. And so we very quickly had to pivot to putting things on the new vehicle, on the website, and really upping the development of our Facebook page and the spend we put through, and something like the video, which our musicians all donated their time and effort to put together. That's had something like 14,000 hits already on YouTube and Facebook, which is huge for us. And
that's Facebook, worldwide.
Yeah, it's Fox 61 has shown it several times. The radio stations have been broadcasting it too. Ironically, I think we've touched the community more in the last few weeks than we ever did with many of our concerts at the Palace, playing to our traditional audience. And that's a very positive thing when we come back in the fall.
That's quite a
or whenever that will be.
That's quite a discovery. Out of necessity comes invention, and you expanded your reach. And you as a CEO have the responsibility of the pivot for the organization. Tell us about who else was all involved in making this happen.
Well, it's ironic you're holding the symphony up as an exemplar of doing something like this, when personally I'm the least technology capable person I know. But fortunately, I'm surrounded by really good people, and Keith, I give you the credit for introducing us to the Accordia group in Greenwich, because they recently built our new website, and we were planning over the summer to build out part 2 of the website, the show and watch and listen sections, the blog, the magazine side, not the transactional side of the website. And so we turned to them immediately and said, we need to bring this to fruition very much more quickly than we would have expected. And they were incredible. I mean, within 10 days of realizing this had to be, we were up and live, and we had content. And the staff and the orchestra have been incredible. If you look at the content on the site, much of it has been contributed by the members of the orchestra. It's donated. We're not paying them a fee for this. They have contributed their time and skills and artistry to putting great content on the site. And we're actually showing the musicians in a 3-dimensional way, talking to them about their hobbies and their personalities and their instruments in a way that isn't possible in a concert. setting with a live performance at the Palace. So it's a lot more interesting, and the audience are involved as well, because we've done 2 Sundays ago we did a town hall. We had 75 people on Zoom for a town hall. We're going to do another one a week on Sunday, and we thought those would be conversations about how do I exchange tickets, or when are you coming back, fairly routine questions. Actually, we didn't get any of that. We talked about music. We talked about hope. We talked about how the channel has made people feel better. It was very, very uplifting and encouraging. And again, only this is possible because we used the digital tools and we put this on the channel. It would not have happened in any other way. So it's been huge for us, and enormous credit to everybody that's worked so hard to do this. Well, we are continuing, I hope, to fulfill our role in the community.
Well, I've been working with you, as you mentioned, on the website, and then connecting in with Accordia, who's done an amazing job. I agree.
Yeah.
Going online like this, what do you see happening? Because I think the reason I wanted you on was you are a business at the end of the day, and you're the CEO, and so you don't have to be the technologist. You provide the vision. And I know a lot of companies that are going through the same kind of thing. Now, they may not have the talent that you have, but they have talent. Now, how do you see, when we come back to a new normal, this becoming part of that new normal in your business?
I think that's the most exciting part about this, because, and I hate that phrase new normal, because what was old normal, and but it will have a huge impact. And I think the silver lining in this cloud is going to be that many of the connections we've made and the other ways that we've now found to communicate with our audience in particular, and our community in a wider way, will not go away. And it could be a while before performing arts organizations are back anything like the way we were last season, because there will be ongoing issues about being in closed spaces and so on. There's some worrying reports out there about how long it will take for our audiences to come back, even if the go-ahead is given to us to do so. So we're going to have to continue to think out of the box in terms of how we bring music to our wider audience. But it will come back, and there's nothing like the sensation of witnessing a live symphony orchestra in a hall. However good recordings are and streaming becomes and so on, you cannot replace the physical sensation of hearing 80 musicians hit you in the chest when they play loudly at the Palace Theatre. You just cannot get that in any other non-physical way. So yes, we will be back. Yes, it may take longer than expected, but let's not throw out all the creativity that's happened in the meantime, because I think our town halls and our channel and so on, you can only do so many concerts a year. We can put a lot of content up on people's own schedules all the time. And so I think this is here to stay, and that's a good thing. I really think it's a good thing.
I really want to highlight your point that, it created a much more three-dimensional view. So it's not just that it's different, it's actually, it enriches the experience. And I think that businesses in general are going to be doing the same kind of experimentation that you do. So we look forward to tracking your success and helping spread the learning to other people here on our channel. So the last question I have is, tell us how people can connect into this, and what kinds of things you're looking to do as you grow your audience online. How can we help?
People are already returning to the website. We've seen the number of hits on the website go up, which of course is fantastic. We're capturing all the analytics there. We have more friends and likes on Facebook than we've had in the last 2 years. Those numbers are going up all the time. If people let us have their email addresses, we'll put them on the mailing list and keep them in touch. But I think mostly people are just going back to visit, because every 3 days or so we're putting new content up. And I mean, one of my favorite bits of content, to make your point about the deeper engagement, I'm doing something called On My Virtual Sofa. And I'm interviewing members of the orchestra on Zoom, on my sofa and their sofa. And I'm talking to them about their lives and all the ways in which they can connect to our audience that are impossible on the Palace stage. That can't go away. That's a good thing. They're getting great numbers of views. And that's really engaging people and making us a really more three-dimensional product. And after all, it is the musicians of the orchestra that are the Stamford Symphony product. It's not me. Nobody buys a ticket to watch me manage. People buy a ticket to come and hear this great music. So we're going to keep at it.
I can't wait to do it. The last symphony was Accordia Group's grand soiree. And I can't wait to go back with Alex and Sophia and Vanya and come visit you in person. Stay on the line. We're going to open up for a general Q&A from our audience after everyone has a chance to talk. And thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, your ideas, and your inspiration, Russell.
A pleasure. Thank you. Great pleasure. Thanks so much.
Russell, thank you. And
Absolutely.
I feel your pain for being responsible for putting on live events to entertain hundreds of even thousands of people. I'm feeling the squeeze too. I feel your pain, man.
It's fun. It's fun as well.
It's not easy.
You know what happens though is it starts out as a scramble, and eventually you get it down to a routine. Is what we've kind of found here over the last month. So
yeah,
it takes less and less time as you go, but it's a big investment. So we get what you're doing, and congratulations.
Thanks so much.
All right, we have another poll up if you haven't weighed in, leading into Dan Morris, who you see on the screen. Hey, Dan. Tell us what you're thinking about the markets today. We've got, not looking but not touching, trading, buying, hedging, and pulled my money into cash.
So, if you take a look at what has been going on in the economy for the last 4 weeks, we started to see some real negative numbers starting to come out. And that really is based upon sort of the last 2 weeks of the quarter, which is a challenge in itself. How bad can it get? This is what's known as a black swan event, which is an unforeseen circumstance that has come in and has been worldwide. They're saying that the economy is having a sharper downturn than even during the financial crisis. One of the things that has happened has been the Fed and other world banks and the government trying to build a bridge from where we were to where we can get to. The question is, how long does that bridge need to be? And we are really right now at the mercy of COVID-19. We still are trying to figure out the asymptomatics. We're trying to figure out a therapy, a vaccine. The term flattening the curve has been one of the things that I know, especially here in the tri-state area, that we have been paying attention to a lot. And it's about trying to prepare. It's right now you have analysis paralysis. You're trying to figure out how it's going to start to work. And in terms of the markets, the markets can be divorced from the economy. There's been a lot of destruction on the economy, between another 5.25 million people unemployed this morning. Home starts went down. Retail was down big yesterday, and that was just the beginning. But what you see is that the markets are really what's known as a forward-looking mechanism. The markets try to anticipate the future. Sometimes you actually hear the markets referred to as a sentient being. The market is doing this. But the market does try and sniff out what is coming and tries to anticipate that. There's a saying in the markets that the market has predicted 10 out of the last 4 recessions. But ultimately, the feeling is that this too shall pass. The economy will recover. It's going to look different. I don't think that there's anybody that can say that it's going to look exactly the same before this happened. One thing that we do notice is that when there is a disjointed move in the economy, trends that were starting or trends that have been moving along tend to accelerate. And a couple of trends that we've seen in just the last 4 weeks that we really think will accelerate even faster is the working from home dynamic. For those of us that are still employed, many of us have had to go to a home base to work out of if we're, and if an office building had to close. Also, shopping from home has become an accelerated trend. Amazon is not taking on new clients right now because they can't fulfill the orders that they have. I just placed an order this morning with Costco, and they say that my 2-day delivery will be 10 business days. So there will be some scaling on that. Also, we're seeing that the working from home has turned into a situation where the backbone of the internet is going to need to be improved. And we saw the beginning of the rolling out of 5G. I think that will get accelerated as well. You take a look at what Russell's doing with the Symphony and being able to put content online, and that's going to be things that are going to be drawn down from the internet. So the backbone needs to be strengthened. And then you also are going to see other disruptive tech start to really make some moves, or disruptive industries. I know that we're having Mark on after us, and he's working on something that could be very disruptive and could be the next wave. We hope for Mark's sake it is. So those are positive trends that we think are accelerating. Of course, then there's also some trends that were in place that are going to start to accelerate the other way. Unfortunately, I think the brick and mortar retail is in for some real trouble here, as people are going to be concerned about going out if and when we reopen the economy. You're also going to see some problems in sports. I know that I would go to a couple Giants games a year, and the person sitting directly to my right, I don't know because he's getting tickets from somewhere else, and we're fighting over the armrest. And I can't say that I'm necessarily going to want that guy very close to me for the time being. So I know that sports franchises and sport leagues are really having to rethink how they are going to entertain us and how they're going to be able to do that. Also, you see supply lines having some big problems right now that I think may actually accelerate because you're seeing a breakdown of globalization, which has been sort of the rage for the last 25 years, where, just as an example, 90% of our antibiotics are not made in this country. And so there's going to be some new thinking in regards to how much of a risk we're going to make these supply chains. And you may start to see a rethinking of how global commerce is done. And then you're going to have some other things that are going to happen that will come back, but they will be slower. For instance, travel and leisure. Those are going to be some of the last things to come back, just simply because people are concerned. We don't have a handle on where we are with this disease and how we're going to be able to beat it. And ultimately, it's going to be a combination of a therapy, testing, and a vaccine. But until then, people are going to be very concerned to do anything beyond just staying local. So in terms of the markets and in terms of the poll, I saw, on the poll that half of the people that took the poll said they're looking at the markets, but they're not touching their investments. And, kind of a couple of things to keep in mind there is that for individuals, you need to understand the risk that you're taking in the market, the risk of what your investments are. And ultimately, you have to be comfortable with that level of risk. That also couples with how soon do you need this money? If you are someone that doesn't need this money for 5 to 10 years or even longer, then looking and not touching is probably a good idea. In any 10-year period, if you take a look over the history of the stock market has always been higher at the end of 10 years than it was when we started looking at it. We don't think that changes here. So, these are things that we need to keep in mind.
We lost you, Dan. Jon, let's jump into action here.
Well, you know, it's it was a good point to leave on, I think, because you know, every 10-year cycle is up. It looks like Dan's popping back in here. And
sorry, I had a note saying you guys couldn't hear me, but obviously you could. I just have I have two other points that I want to make, and then I will defer back to the crowd. You know, so the time horizon is, if you need the money sooner, then you need to start thinking about the kind of risk that you're willing to take in the market. If you have a longer time horizon, not touching it is probably a very good idea. If you have some sort of contribution program to your 401k or to your IRA, you're actually taking advantage of this down cycle because you're able to buy stocks in what's called a dollar cost average. So you're buying stocks every month or every quarter or however often you're contributing, and that can help to buy it at a cheaper rate than you could have 3 months ago. But if you are somebody that has had some sort of disjointed move, you or a spouse has been laid off, you've had reduced hours, your business is considered non-essential, and you need to start to figure out a way to stretch your dollars. There's a few things that we recommend that you could take a look at. One is to, if one of you is still working in a spousal relationship, is to cut down or stop your auto savings program for the short term. So if you're contributing to a 401k and money is tight, that's something you could take a look at. You could also take a look at consolidating your subscriptions. You know, we've become a subscription-based society, and there's probably some subscriptions that you don't necessarily need right now. And, you know, a lot of these subscription services are willing to suspend or delay any sort of billing. You can get together with other families or friends, and you can buy in bulk. I did an order last week from a food distributor out of the Bronx, and we split it among 6 families, and it really turned into a big savings. And then really, if things are really tough, one of the last things you can do is you can look to clear out your space, and you can sell things on eBay or Craigslist or any of the other things like that. There are some other things, some other resources that I will talk about. I know we're going to have another conversation a little later in the meeting, in the conversation. So with that, I will defer back to our hosts, and I appreciate the time.
That was some solid advice, and we're really glad to have you join us on the show. You are also a board member of Stamford Innovation Week, and we appreciate all you contribute to make this program a success. Thank you.
Happy to do it.
So I am going to show you something amazingly cool. All right. Okay. Dan, we want you to go off camera, and Mark, you're going to get an invitation, and let's bring you up online. And welcome.
And while Mark's booting back in, you know, what you're seeing in that video is one of the primary products for Wave Aerospace, Mark's company, of which he's the co-founder. They're doing absolutely incredible work in the drone space. You saw how far that drone went, how high and how fast, but also what they're working on is about power. So it's not just speed, but it's the ability to do some heavy lifting. So Mark is the founder of that company. I've actually known Mark for a number of years. Mark and I worked when I was at all the way back at Kodak, actually, a few years ago. Mark was a featured speaker for us at that point, and in Stamford Innovation Week this past year, he executed a build a drone workshop. And so Mark had some folks come in and into Yukon and do from scratch a drone assembly. And so Mark's been an incredible partner from that perspective, as far as just helping bring drone technology out into the community and help people understand that, you know, it's very approachable, it's very safe, and along those lines, get folks comfortable, you know, both using it and seeing it and being around it. And he's also launching an incredible project that even involves the FAA. So it's looks like Mark's still trying to boot up there, but it's been yeah.
Well,
Go ahead.
I've had a similar experience with Mark. The way you and I met, John, was through the innovation luncheons, and he was my second presenter and told the story of pivoting a company. And, you know, it was very much akin to what we heard from Russell. You know, you get dealt a reality and you deal with it, and you got to lead your team. So that was how Mark and I met. Hey, and he's online. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, John and Keith. I appreciate the opportunity to join everybody here. It's really an honor.
What we saw in that little video that you sent in.
Sure. Well, you know, it looked from the outside, it probably looked pretty familiar to everyone. A drone. It did have wings on it, which make it very special. And it's actually a very unique aircraft, and it doesn't really fit into any category that exists now. We all know that if you want to go to California, you're not going to take a helicopter. It's unlikely you're going to take a drone either. You're going to take a 747 or 787, something like that. And there's a reason for that, right? Though that plane is efficient in flying a long distance. Drones are really good also at holding cameras and taking still shots. But there's a big missing gap. The gap between or rotorcraft and aircraft. They both have limitations. Can't land a 747 in your front yard. At the same time, you can't take your quadcopter and fly it to Mexico. So what we set out to do is to build an aircraft that bridged that gap, that had the capabilities or certain capabilities of a rotorcraft while maintaining the efficiencies and the abilities of a regular aircraft. I used to have a flight instructor that said, I wouldn't get in it unless it looked like a bird. Well, this doesn't look like a bird very much, but it was our goal to make it behave like both, like a bird, and be able to fly long distances with very little energy used, but then also be able to fly like a dragonfly, where it could be very precise and come in and land in a very small or hover in a very small area.
Why'd you go down that path?
Actually, it's quite simple. I was playing with a toy drone, probably a $30 drone from Amazon about 5 years ago, and I was frustrated by the fact that the batteries didn't last long. And if anybody's played around with drones, you know that you have to get extra batteries. The batteries don't last very long at all. And I started looking for ways to actually just have it fly for longer and have those batteries be more efficient, basically. So it was really a game of efficiency. But what turned out of that research, what came out of it was, in order to fly more efficiently, you actually needed a different type of aircraft. And as it turned out, it was one that had never been built. And over the last 5 years, we've built a number of these new aircraft that use a variety of different mechanisms. They're almost to be thought of as a hybrid, just like a hybrid car. So when you push on the gas and you want that acceleration, you get both electric and gas power coming out of your wheels. But when you're coasting along on the it's over to just straight electric. So if you think about this as a hybrid airplane version of a hybrid car.
And who follows it with your team? Who's your broader network or infrastructure that it's taken to do this? Because I know you're bending
far beyond those that are allowed by a consumer drone user, and more in line with full-size aircraft. I'm actually a co-founder of a company called Wave Aerospace. My co-founder is Steve Beaufil. And we have a team of about 5 that work here in Stamford and Long Island. And that's an important aspect of this project that I'd like to mention, that because we can fly a significant range with these, and because they can lift a commercially viable payload, you hear about Amazon, you hear about UPS delivering things. Most of those packages are very small. We can carry 50 pounds or even 100 pounds in some cases. We're actually working with the state of New York to build an airway that goes from Connecticut across Long Island Sound, so not over people, to Suffolk County, New York. So our team is spread between here and Suffolk County at this point. And then, of course, working with the FAA to make that possible. I should note that there's a lot of people in the United States, including Airbus and Boeing, General Electric, working on ways to integrate drones into the airspace that people fly in. Right now, we're actually not involved in that. We're actually looking at moving commercial goods in airspace that is not currently occupied by aircraft carrying people. So that certainly is an interesting problem. It's not something that we're addressing right now, but you will hear about that at times, and it's a problem that's going to have to be dealt with. There are an order of magnitude, or actually 2 or 3 orders of magnitude more drones in the air than aircraft carrying people, and the FAA is not at this point prepared to monitor all that.
So what has been, it's interesting, you've got this dispersed organization across the Long Island Sound, but I know you also have office space in Stamford, Connecticut. What has been the impact of COVID on you guys? How have you innovated? I mean, I have to believe, as innovative as you are on that side, you've probably done some pretty cool things as a team.
Yeah, well,
tell us what you could share.
Sure. Well, it's challenging. The COVID-19, crisis that's going on right now. Historically, this has happened throughout the ages, and it's difficult. I mean, I will be the first to say that it's challenging for me. I like to be face to face, and it's challenging for our engineering team to actually work with complex CAD programs collaboratively on over Skype or Zoom or any of these big marker. One of the interesting things is we're at a point now where we're actually flying aircraft, and being outside is one of the few things. We do wear protection, we do wear masks and gloves, but being outside in airport-like facilities or airports is something that we can do together, keeping social distancing. And so some of the video, like you just saw, was very recent. And we're able to continue that flight testing pretty much without a problem. But it's been a challenge, especially with regard to the engineering. The engineering tools are just not built to. They're very resource intensive, and they're not built to go over these communication channels that we're using right now. So it's been a challenge for all of us, and we're definitely looking forward to the day where we can sit down at the drawing table again.
Do you see the engineering tools moving to the cloud, or do you think the limitations are such that we have to get back to physical meeting space to get optimum output?
Sure, it's a good question, and it's interesting because the engineering tools have actually already moved to the cloud, in that the 2 big parts of it, the files and then also the 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 mechanics, the testing of the aircraft online, whether it's a digital wind tunnel or stress testing, that's all done by very large computers in the cloud with the results sent back locally. However, the workflow from a collaborative standpoint has not moved. So I don't know how they're going to do that. We even have gotten to the point, where we're holding up sketches and things. I know my daughter used to hold up pictures to this computer, and I would say, "What are you doing?" She's saying, "I'm talking to my friends, but I don't want you to hear." She's holding up a note, like a class note. But yeah, it's been a challenge. The one thing I want to add is that, again, about the aircraft is, you hear a lot of talk about the delivery of goods, and I think that's where, with regard to COVID-19, that's where we can really have an impact. We talk about not going to the pharmacy, and people are talking about getting things delivered, and you hear a lot of that in the news. I think it's going to be a long time before we have drones landing in our lawns. They're big mechanical items. For the same reason you can't wander around on the airport runway. You don't really want to be wandering anywhere near these big aircraft. And so that last mile does represent still a great opportunity for, like, the Postal Service and Amazon, who are working on that. However, other aspects of moving commercial goods and even retail goods, whether it's 40 miles, 50 miles from a central place, that can become very efficient with these small aircraft. So we can take a lot of vehicles and a lot of traffic, literally traffic, off the roads. We don't have any if you think about it as short range hauling, as opposed to these trucks that move big amounts across the country, long range hauling. But the short range hauling is something that I think is going to be disrupted. I think the ability to move small, commercially viable size packages around is really where the disruption is going to come. That last mile delivery is a problem that obviously Amazon's facing, the Postal Service is facing. And what we're looking for is to disrupt all of those box trucks that are, for example, traveling from Connecticut to Long Island, looping around the curve there, when we can fly just 10 miles and be over in Huntington instead of an hour and a half or 2 hours by car. And that's a disruption that I think is ripe. And the reason you haven't seen it yet, and the reason people aren't talking about it yet, is because the drone paradigm that we're hearing about is simply not capable of lifting that amount of goods, or flying in bad weather. They can only fly in good weather. You rarely see drones flying in the rain. And what we've created is an aircraft that can fly in almost any weather conditions, day or night, freezing cold, burning hot, 50-mile-an-hour winds, no problem, and it can still make that delivery. And I think that's where the opportunity lies. I think there's a huge opportunity still in solving that last mile issue.
Yeah, well, we could do a whole show on that. I'm going to keep us moving along.
Sure.
And bring Dan back in. Dan, are you online?
I am here.
All right. So, and Mark, thanks a lot. Just fascinating stuff. I love tracking what you're doing, and we'll bring you back on again.
Absolutely. And Long Island Sound is a real opportunity, so we look forward to it.
Super. Dan, over the last few weeks, we've kind of touched base at the highest level on the CARES Act. You had some research and some experience to update us this week.
Right. So I know that a lot of people that have spoken to may have seen the news that the initial CARES package dollars that were for the EIDL, which is the emergency income declaration, that's for small businesses, for 1099 employees, for sole proprietors, and then the PPP, the payroll protection plan loans, they have run out of money. It was not to be unexpected. I know that they are trying to figure out a way to fund it again. I know there has been some fits and starts on it. However, I have started talking to a few of my clients and small business owners that have been approved and are waiting to have money dispersed. You can apply for both of these things. I mean, they're not taking applications right now because they can't fund anything beyond what they've already taken in. But once that gets refunded by the government, the suggestion is to apply for both, because while you may qualify for X amount of dollars, it's not going to matter where it came from long term, because it's going to be money for your business. For those of you that are not business owners and or are in the gig economy, unemployment is still filing. They have not been designed to handle this crush of applications over the last 4 weeks. I know there was a call out a week ago that they were looking for COBOL programmers because the system was so antiquated. So there might be a breath of life for those of us that are the Gen Xers that learned that when we were growing up. So you never know. It all comes back around. Bell bottoms and COBOL programmers. But that's another thing that you can take a look at. And really, the government is being very generous. The federal government is adding up to $600 above what the states are giving you for 4 months. I've heard of individual instances where the unemployment check is actually bigger than what you were getting as an employee. I know there was some talk that they wanted to limit that, but they ended up letting that go. So that is something you could take a look at. So from a standpoint of availability of money, there are some options. You need to work with, on the PPP loan, you need to work with a local lender, whether it is a community bank or if you have an existing business relationship with the big banks, you need to go directly through there. The EIDL is a direct application with the SBA. And then unemployment is with your various states.
Got it. Is there anything else you want to add, or can we open it up to a discussion?
I do want to mention one other thing that is out there, and this is for people that are in a really bad way and they're trying to figure out how to get from here to there. One other thing that came out with the CARES Act that was passed is what is known as the coronavirus hardship withdrawal. This is the ability for you to withdraw money from your IRA or your 401k. There are various ways you could do it, and I would really strongly recommend that you talk to a tax professional, your CPA, whoever you work with on tax issues, to understand what the ramifications are. But at a very top level, if you are seeing a need for this money because you've been laid off, you're considered a non-essential business, you have hours reduced, you can't find daycare, it's a pretty wide funnel for people that would be eligible. And so what you can do is you can take up to $100,000 out as a hardship withdrawal from your IRA or from your 401k. If you're below 59.5, they are not going to penalize you, that 10% penalty. And they are going to give you 3 years to pay the taxes, because there is going to be taxes due on a withdrawal. They're going to give you 3 years to repay the taxes, a third this year, a third next year, a third the year after. If you're able to pay the money back, you can get a refund on the taxes that you had to pay. So this is an ultimate possibility if you've really exhausted all of your other avenues, and it's just that desperate a time, unfortunately. So hopefully you don't have to do it, but it is available.
I want to thank you very much. Very informative. I'm getting messaging, Dan, that you're the bomb here. So I also want to open it up to some Q&A. We have a question for Russell. Are you there, Russell?
Yep, I'm here.
Super. So the question was, will you consider bringing one or more members of the symphony outside to play in the parks downtown once the quarantine ends? That's from Michael M.
Yes, it's a good idea. We've already thought about what we might do over the summer when the weather gets better, and to see if we could bring the brass, for instance, outside where the sound would easily travel. So absolutely, good idea, and we're already thinking about it. If people would like that, I would love us to do that.
That's great. Well, we'd love to see you there. I got a comment, Mark, your vision really resonates. And then I have a question here. Dan, do you think the recovery will change the market dynamic in any way? For example, high growth companies without profits have led the indices for quite some time. Everyone hopes for the next Amazon or Facebook and to get in early. And they've gotten hammered. Could this impetus be returned of volume to value names?
So one of the concerns that you're going to have is right now, I think people are really thinking very short term because there's just so much uncertainty out there. What you've seen performing recently has been more the stocks that for the companies that would do well in a situation like this. Amazon for home shopping, Netflix because you're streaming. Those are the companies that seem to be doing well. You know, you talk about value names and just again at a very high level. The reason that they're value names is that they generally are paying a pretty hefty dividend. You know, so and the question is, how long is this economic downturn going to be? How long are these companies potentially going to suffer? And if they suffer long enough, is that dividend at risk? So I don't know that you can say right now that there is a path to where an intermediate or long-term investment can be made because we just don't have enough information. The market is very opaque right now because we just don't know. We don't know how long COVID's going to take.
We can't
That
make
being
decisions
said,
because we're.
Yeah, that being said, growth at any cost, that may change a little bit. I mean, I think that the consumer is going to change. I think the way that the economy works is going to change, and that's the opportunity. But we have to recognize that first. I would say right now, people are guessing.
Well, I appreciate your insights on that, and we'll watch this space. You know, Stanford Innovation Week is really an amazing community. I encourage you to get involved while we're doing this virtually, and we look forward to getting everybody back to physical events that we've done so many of over the last couple of years. But you know, we're also here to help you, and the reason we created this channel was to tell the stories of how people are reacting, like the Symphony, like Mark's company, and help companies innovate to that new normal as fast as possible. So I think your insights there were really prescient, and we're all going to be in this together. Jon and I have also enjoyed kind of doing some research and keeping people up to speed. One of the things we've been tracking has been Zoom, where we actually started our first show on Zoom, and our colleague Shannon, hi Shannon, within Captive, and Zoom has gotten a lot of knocks lately. And so one of the things we wanted to share here is an article we'll have in the resources here that you can download on how to use Zoom safely. There's a 10 tips and tricks to do that. We don't have time to go through them all, but here they are, and you'll be able to download the article that we captured for you, because this is really the way we're all going to be working, and we've got to be safe and put on a good show, which we're all learning to do here. The other thing I wanted to share about this is another little tip and trick for using Zoom, and that is being able to. Last week we talked about putting up virtual backgrounds. Well, I learned this week that there's you can also add a video, and somebody wrote a blog post that why not use Zoom to record a video of yourself watching a conference call, and then cover up your camera so you can go about your business in the room that you're in, and you'll have yourself on screen nodding and chatting with people, or at least listening. in on the call. So that caught my attention. That we got a big laugh about was this idea of the wacky PPE that you're seeing, memes around the internet. This was sort of a mild one. We also have some people who dressed up as grocery stores was somebody getting personal space to get on the subway by taping plastic tubes to their poncho.
Well, that could also potentially be some sort of filtration system. So you don't know if it's filled with Brillo pads and charcoal things for your refrigerator either. So who knows? The question is, you know what? Actually, why this costume is genius is not because it's physically effective. It's because it conveys how potentially you are thinking about coronavirus and probably scares off the rest of the passengers. In fact, you could see that no one else is getting onto this train that this guy's getting onto, it appears. So he's, whether it's psychological or physical, the message is getting across here.
Forced social distancing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just got a message from Steven. I'm kitchen hacking pineapple bacon fried chicken right now. So while we're on the show, so there are some benefits to social distancing and working from home. Look on the bright side. Well, we're coming up at the top of our hour. Jon, is there anything else you wanted to share?
Thanks everybody for joining again this week. We're going to do an announcement shortly over email for the next show, but we got some really exciting guests coming up with the recording, and make sure you grab those handouts and resources. We got one for the CARES Act, and we got one for how to stay safe and secure on Zoom. So make sure you grab those and join us next week.